Hi everyone, welcome to the GFI India webinar series. I'm Amrita, the SciTech Associate here at GFI India. And today's webinar titled Building Career Pathways as a Food Technologist features three eminent speakers in the smart protein sector and is moderated by one of our own, Padma Aishwarya, our SciTech specialist at GFI India. For your information, this session today is going to be recorded and will be posted on YouTube as part of our webinar series. We will drop the link for the playlist soon in the chat box, and you can also type out any questions that you have for the speakers. Just make sure to mention the name of the speaker that you would like to direct the questions to, and the questions will then be picked up at the end during the Q&A part of the webinar. So I'll hand it over to Purvasha to introduce the session.
Thank you, Amrita. Glad to see such a good turnout. Again, thank you so much to all our speakers who could make the time to come here. I'll just quickly get started. So I know that some folks in the room would already know what GFI Ideas India does. But for the rest of you, it's a community for innovators who are looking to transform the food system by either creating or expanding access to what we call as smart protein, but is globally known as alternative protein. So the aim of this community is to advance the smart protein ecosystem in India. We offer entrepreneurs, investors, industry professionals, students, researchers, anyone who's looking to work within this field, the opportunity to connect with each other, share advice, resources, and attend a lot of webinars like the one that you're attending right now, and create good food businesses. The three pillars of what we look at within the community is one, having the LinkedIn community, which is where you can directly network with other folks on the community. We host a lot of webinars and in-person events as well in India and different cities. So that's another thing to look out for. And if you join the community, you also get our monthly newsletter, which is a deep dive into something that's happening in smart protein. So that's kind of a lot about what we're doing here in GFI Ideas India community. Padma, Amrita, can we go to the next slide? Great, thank you. Just to speak a little bit about who is this session intended for. So a lot of you might be students, graduates, interns, a lot of different folks are looking to enter this sector, and you might have questions about how do you exactly do that? What are our pathways to kind of build a career in this sector, which is where our speakers come in. We also have our India Smart Protein Project student group. So we have 3 citywide chapters now, one in Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai. And this is something that expands every year. And we also have a lot of early stage professionals who are looking to build a career pathway, whether it be in the R&D side or the business side in this particular sector. So we are looking to capture all of you, and yeah, that's the goal. So I'll quickly introduce our moderator for today and hand it over. Padma, our GFI India plant-based specialist, holds a master's and PhD in food technology from CSIR, Central Food Technological Research Institute, and has over a decade of experience in academia and food industry. She has over 3 years of postdoctoral experience at institutions like IIT Madras, and is also an established author of several scholarly publications and books in the fields of food science and technology. At GFI India, Padma brings her complementary academia and industry experience to her work, exploring plant-based resources for smart protein applications. She aims to apply her research expertise across areas of functional food, product development, soft food materials, encapsulation, and food industry side stream valorization. So thank you so much, Padma, for coming on board to moderate this session. Handing it over to you now.
Thank you, Purvasha. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this exciting session on building career pathways as a food technologist. So way back in 2005, I chose to pursue my bachelor's degree in food technology, truly fascinated by its interdisciplinary scientific nature and the kind of technical skills that imparts to the students to make the food that the world loves. And I have always relished my professional journey as a food technologist. And I'm sure that all of you would resonate with this feeling. The sector has really come a long way. Well, the government of India has recognized the food processing sector as a high priority industry, as it has shown immense potential for creating employment opportunities and generating income for the country. A recent article, in fact, pointed out that food industry is expected to add 9 million jobs by 2024. And interestingly, GFI India and Deloitte India's economic analysis report showed that the smart protein sector is poised to create up to 4 lakh jobs by 2030. Interesting, is it not? So this shows the promise of the smart protein field. So with this brief background, I'm sure that we will have plenty of food for thoughts in the next 40 to 45 minutes, as we will be listening to three food technologists who have successfully established their careers in the smart protein field. So without any further delay, I'm extremely happy to introduce and welcome our esteemed speakers for today's session. We have Siddharth Bhide with us today. Siddharth works as a food scientist with Good Meat, and his work revolves around cultivated meat R&D and commercialization. Prior to Good Meat, he was part of the GFI India team as a science and technology specialist working on smart protein ecosystem development, and Eat Just as a food scientist where he worked on plant-based egg R&D and commercialization. Siddharth holds a master's degree in food science from Rutgers University, New Jersey, and a bachelor's degree in food technology from Osmania University, Hyderabad. Welcome, Siddharth. We are joined by Sruthi Sadanand. Sruthi is the founder and CSO at Altruistic Innovations. She is supporting startups, investors, and the education space representing the alternative protein sector. Her previous work experiences were with International Flavors and Fragrances, a renowned flavor company, and Shiok Meats, a cultivated seafood company. She has successfully executed various projects related to flavor development and setting up a process line for a cultivated meat startup. Shruti pursued her MS by Research from the National University of Singapore and BTech in Food Technology from Anna University, Chennai. Hi, Shruti. Welcome to this session. We also have with us Apoorva Prasanna. Apoorva is an associate scientist at Impossible Foods. She has been part of the product innovation team at Impossible Foods for the past 4 years. Apoorva graduated from Drexel University in 2017 with a MS degree in food science. Apoorva has previously worked with plant-based food companies such as Perfect Day Foods, Danone, and Mark. Her expertise include translational research, formulation, ingredient functionality, and application of novel technologies in the dairy and meat alternative space. Welcome, Apoorva. We are happy to have all the three speakers with us today, and I look forward to having an interesting conversation with all three of you on your respective journeys in the smart protein sector. So let's get started. My first question is for all the three speakers. I request you to go one by one. So we would like to hear more about your academic background and work experience. What was your journey like before you entered the smart protein field? And was there any event or a moment that sparked your interest and transition into the smart protein sector? Siddharth, we'll start with you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Padma, and the entire GFI India team for organizing this webinar. And thank you to our attendees too for being here and looking forward to this today. So Padma has already introduced, like, in terms of my educational background, I have a master's in food science from Rutgers, undergrad from Osmania University in Hyderabad, where I'm originally from. And really my journey, my full-time experience has been in the smart protein field. So once I graduated in 2015, after my master's, I started working with Eat Just, formerly known as Hampton Creek, on plant-based egg. And so in 2015, when I was graduating, I remember like a lot of companies like Hampton Creek, Impossible, Beyond, they were still in nascent stage, still launching their first products, still doing R&D. So for me, when I was graduating, I felt it was a very interesting sphere to be in. And we also say that in research and development, there is usually a balance between research and development. Sometimes you do a little more research, a little less development, or sometimes it's, research has already been established and you're doing more development. So I was always interested in research. So that was a good choice for me, actually, when I graduated, joining Hampton Creek. And it has been a good choice. I think the industry has grown. And as we all know, the impact of the industry, in terms of sustainability, so I'm very glad to have gotten opportunities in this field. So 3.5 years with Eat Just, working and launching the first two versions of the plant-based egg product. And then after that, I was with GFI India. So as you know, GFI India and GFI globally is playing a huge role in advancing the smart protein field. So I was a part of different projects, right from developing some coursework to developing the smart protein ecosystem database, which was fabulous experience for me, and happy to contribute to the community. And then currently I work on what we call cell cultivated chicken with good meat. So again, working a lot on research and development to get the right chicken texture, right flavor, and then commercializing these products, as you might know, in Singapore and in the US. So that's been my background.
Thank you, Siddharth. Very inspiring. Shruti, can we hear from you?
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity, Padma and team. And it's quite cool to see that we have been connected with people around the world. So my background is actually for technology, as I've been telling, like Padma is actually super senior from Anna University. I did my undergrad in around 2010. And when I passed out, I got an opportunity to work at IFF. For around 2 years, I worked at IFF. I had an amazing boss. So I was kind of assisting the principal flavorist there. So working in the manufacturing plant, which means you kind of get an opportunity to work or peek in different departments in the manufacturing plant. So my boss was literally made me explore the world of flavors, and I kind of got a peek to know about the entire department or the process, what happens from raw material to procurement to QC to R&D to production and then sales. And this overall process made me intrigued to learn more about flavors. That landed me to do a master's in Singapore, where I kind of did my master's by research, a kind of a mini PhD, got a taste of PhD, where I did encapsulation of flavor molecules using seaweed. And that's when I realized I don't want to be in research. I'm not a person to be in lab. I really want to go meet people, interact, and get to explore. And I was very much active in the NUS startup ecosystem for around 3 years. Kind of co-founded and started non-profit organizations, and that's where so if you look into Singapore is like a startup ecosystem. Everyone there with an innovative idea will spin off and they have a startup ecosystem. When I graduated, I was very sure to join a startup and not a corporate job. So Sandhya and Kai, they had Shiok meets in 2019, and I was fortunate enough to join the team as one among the 6. And I was the only one with a food tech background. So most of the food tech projects I was kind of leading. And it was an amazing ride, had a 3.5-year ride leading the food tech team, kind of had every day was challenge. I was just telling to Siddharth, like being in a cultivated meat space, every day is a challenge because you don't have any SOPs or any reference papers of 50 years back to go refer. It's something you have to curate yourself. So it was an amazing ride. And this year I gave birth to a baby girl, and I've started my own firm as a consultant. So I actually support investors for technical due diligence and also startups for helping them product strategy, product development, and also provide educational insights for universities and students. So this is my nutshell about my background. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shruti. Apoorva, can we hear from you?
Sure. Firstly, thanks a lot for this opportunity to share my experience and background with everyone. Yeah, fortunately, I have been in the smart protein sector from the beginning of my professional career. So a little bit about my academic background. I have a bachelor's of engineering degree in biotechnology from VTU, Karnataka. It was a 4-year undergrad course where I got to study some really interesting subjects like microbiology, genetic engineering, protein chemistry, and food technology. I also had an opportunity to do my research project or research thesis in the final year, and we were looking at what different ways we can use oyster mushroom for bioremediation and for its antimicrobial potential. In simpler words, we were trying to see if there are enzymes present in oyster mushrooms that can degrade some textile dyes that are let out into water bodies. So basically, my interest has always been in looking at innovative, sustainable solutions since then. So after I completed my bachelor's degree, I wanted to pursue higher studies, and I had to choose a specific area of interest because biotech was like a broad domain. So one thing I realized was that since my childhood, 2 things that I was really passionate and excited about was food and science. So I felt that it would be like a perfect combination of both if I pursue my master's in food science. So in 2015, I came to the US for my master's in food science in Drexel University, Philadelphia. So after my or during my master's, I was again fortunate to get an opportunity to intern with Perfect Day Foods. So like Siddharth mentioned, it was back then where all the smart protein and the alternative protein sector was just, blooming. It was everything was new. So Perfect Day Foods they were trying to make alternative dairy proteins using fermentation. So I worked with the research team to test the functionality of these proteins and see what is the application of these proteins and how does it compare to dairy proteins. After my internship, I graduated from my master's. I got an opportunity with Danone on their plant-based yogurt site. So I was actually working in a manufacturing facility, but I was representing the R&D. So I was mostly working on scale-up trials and trying to troubleshoot a lot of issues that happens during scale-up and then trials. And I was also involved on doing a lot of shelf life studies to see how the product lives once it's produced and how long it can be stable. So after that, I moved to a startup called Malk, where they were trying to make this premium plant-based milk using non-thermal processing. It's called HPP. It's basically you're using pressure instead of heat uh, to um, to make your milk stay longer. So basically, they were making oat milk and oat-based creamers, and then nut-based milk. So I was the only. It was a very small team. I was the only person in R&D, so I was responsible for developing a portfolio of their yogurt, milk, and creamers. And after that, I had an opportunity to work with Impossible Foods. It was my dream company to work for Impossible Foods, learning about the like new technology. So I was a fan since then, and then yeah, I started in 2020, and I've been working on plant-based beef and other meat products, and also a lot of cool technological innovations and platforms. So yeah, it's been 8 years of experience in the smart protein sector as a food scientist, and it's nothing but a fun, fulfilling journey, as I can say.
Thank you, Apoorva. It is always interesting to listen to the journey of a food scientist and seeing food through the lens of a food scientist. And then it's a very different perspective. Thank you, Apoorva. My next question is for Shruti. Shruti, a lot of technical skills we learn during our student phase are transferable, right? Which equips us to transition into a scientific area, which is different from the one we started with. So, in what ways do you think your education and prior experience prepared you for a career in smart protein, specifically in terms of technical skills?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this is more relevant for cultivated meat space. When I joined Shiok in 2019, it was very nascent in cultivated meat space. Especially in seafood area, we didn't have anything to refer to. So the only thing we could refer to was conventional meat and its parameters, and then see how it works with the cultivated meat, which means that my base in food technology or the processing technology which I learned for meat processing was very much helpful for me to like literally go back and apply. At the same time, I would say for the students, be very active in your internship, because I had no clue that things which I kind of learned and spoke or experienced during my internship popped up during my application when I was leading the team in Shiok Meat. So that's where the key things came in. And when you learn your food technology, right, for the 4 years, you never know where the things will be applied. But I'm telling you, when you go into the experiential field or when you get into the industry, it will pop up and you will see the names like, oh, this we've learned. Let me go back and cross-check and try to apply and perform trial and errors to see whether it works for that particular smart protein. So yeah, that's where it happened from my experience.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Shruti, because like I would also suggest that students should really take up internship seriously, because that is where we see like whatever we have read in our textbooks in a real environment. I have a follow-up question for Siddharth here. Siddharth, what advice would you give professionals who are looking to identify opportunities in the smart protein sector and find their niche in this field?
Yeah, so I think I would say that GFI is the place to go. I think GFI publishes so many good reports, right? There is the state of the industry reports to understand like how the market is like over the years, what are the market opportunities. Then there is the GFI's research grant program to understand the current research opportunities in the plant-based, fermentation derived or cell cultivated meat that is happening across the globe. So if anyone is interested in co-research, they could reach out to those research groups, ask for any master's, PhD research positions. Then I think one other thing which is a fabulous resource I feel is the Smart Protein Solutions database, where it is clearly highlighted, what are the different research opportunities available, what value chain segment they fall in, who are the stakeholders who need to work on it. So I think that would be, sort of my go-to resources for students wanting to work in the smart protein field, because GFI has compiled them all for you. And all you need to do is like go there, read up on it. Like even I personally, like if I hit any obstacles in my R&D, I usually go to GFI's websites. Like just the other day, I was looking at GFI's deep dive on, different plant-based like crop optimization, ingredient optimization, end product texturization. They have everything listed. They have scientific papers also which are cited. So then you could refer to those scientific papers. So I think that's where I would start off with.
Thank you, Siddharth, for highlighting our resources. Even when I joined GFI, I think I spent my first 1 month, exploring all those resources. It's like a very comprehensive deep dive into each of the topics. So I think like whoever is interested in this field, so that should be your go-to resource, because we have everything compiled in one place. Thank you, Siddharth, for that. My next question is for Apoorva. Apoorva, dealing with setbacks is a major part of every scientist's job. What have been some technical challenges that you have faced in your work environment? So it could be related to the process, quality, or consumer satisfaction. And can you share your learnings from those experiences with us?
Sure. It's a great question, Padma. So before I get into the actual technical challenges that I have faced, let's maybe talk about like a brief overview of how a product is developed and then get into the technical challenges. So for a product to come into the market, it has to go through this product development process. Basically, it starts with something called as benchtop testing, where we are trying to make the product in smaller quantities in a lab scale. And then we select the best performing sample and then try to make that in larger quantities in a pilot test. Say, for example, a bench scale test would be 100 ml or 200 ml of plant-based milk. At pilot scale, it would be like 10 or 20 liters. And then from there to manufacturing scale would be like hundreds or thousands of liters, depending on how big the facility is. During this entire product development process, there are different criteria like shelf life, nutrition, food safety, consumer liking, acceptance, all of these monitored. And if a product meets all of these goals, that's when it's produced in the manufacturing facility and then it's sold in the market. Once it goes to the market, we try to collect feedback from the consumers and try to see what are some of the changes we can make to reformulate our product for better acceptance. So this is the whole process. So from my point of view, one of the technical challenges that I've had with processing is the variability when it comes to during scale up. Say, for example, we're trying to make samples in a smaller quantities in a lab, and then we try to scale up in a pilot scale, which is in larger quantities, and the type of equipments or the type of machinery that is being used is very different. Say, if we're trying to make a plant-based milk using a blender and a lab scale homogenizer in lab, and then we're using a water bath to pasteurize that milk, and then now we go to a pilot scale or like a manufacturing scale where we're using these powerful blenders and mixers, and then there is a really efficient homogenizer with higher pressure setting, and then there is probably a thermal processing unit. So all of these things will change how the product behaves in terms of its viscosity, its flavor profile, and even the yield. So for a scientist, it's very important to keep in mind about all these factors that can change during the scale-up process while developing the product at bench scale. So the learning that I've had here was to have the scale down approach, basically trying to understand what are some of the processing conditions or factors that we can control at bench scale, and trying to make it as close as possible to that of the manufacturing scale. In terms of consumer acceptability, I feel the challenge has always been a gap in understanding what exactly the consumer is looking for in a product versus what we are trying to develop. So as technical experts and scientists, we are always in this troubleshooting mode and trying to solve for problems. And sometimes we might not be solving for the right problems, or maybe we're not solving for problems that are very relevant and important to the consumers. So say, for example, we are trying to develop a dairy alternative milk to cow's milk. From a scientist's perspective, I'm trying to mimic its flavor, texture, color, everything as close as possible to cow's milk and then sell it to the consumers. But maybe for majority of consumers, it's just how this milk works in their morning coffee. Does it foam? Does it foam like cow's milk? Or when it's added to coffee, does it precipitate? Maybe things like that, just the functionality of how that protein is working and not the other things. So understanding what they need and what we're trying to develop is another important thing. So learning here has been to collect as much information as possible from consumers by running consumer tests. And it's not just sufficient if we run the test, but also interpreting this data in an accurate format so that we understand well what the consumer perception is. And then in terms of quality, especially with plant-based foods, we've seen that shelf life can be a major issue, and that is mostly influenced by the type of ingredients that's being used. And yeah, since it's all coming from plant-based source, there's a lot of variability, and this can have an influence on the stability of the product, and it can also have an influence on consistency between batches of the products that's being produced. So a learning here was that to work very closely with the ingredient suppliers to create and monitor the ingredient specs that we're getting from them, and that way we can reduce the variability of ingredients, and in a way we can control the shelf life and quality of the product.
Thank you, Apoorva, for that detailed answer. I'll follow this up with Shruti also. Shruti, since you are heavily involved in supporting startups and also in the education space, you might have witnessed your clients experiencing setbacks, and you must have constructed strategies to overcome them. So we would love to hear your thoughts on how to deal with setbacks from a startup's perspective. Shruti, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Padma. So I think one thing what I've seen with the startups is that if they're developing a product, since I was in a startup at an early stage and kind of went through the startup leading the food tech team, we need to look into a product as an entire pathway, not just developing a product, but right from raw material selection to raw material sourcing to building the product benchtop scale, as Apoorva had mentioned, to scale up, to making it reach the consumers and also the supply chains. So I would always say to everyone, even when an intern joins to a company, right? Even if you're an R&D, go and learn about the other departments so that you get to know the entire process chain of what happens from raw material to when it reaches the table, so that you think through the entire roadmap to see what kind of challenges can pop up. Why this is very important is because if you say that, okay, I'm in R&D, I'm developing a benchtop scale, and then you develop this product within the parameters of benchtop, especially in cultivated meat space. A simple example, as Apoorva had said, for milk protein, I could say like a centrifugation is a process which we do for a benchtop scale. But when you go for a manufacturing scale, a centrifuge which is used for benchtop scale is not a similar, it is more, stronger. It can disrupt the cells in the cultivated meat. So you need to literally pay attention to what parameters has been involved. Another thing is sensory profiles. The parameters just involved in the benchtop scale might vary for the parameters when you scale up. So when a startup, I also deal with product strategy. For example, say if a company is there, they are doing a plant-based meat with a pea protein source in India, and they're sourcing pea proteins from, say, Malaysia. For a benchtop, that is not sustainable, right? You need to find a source which is more closer to their place, and which is why in Singapore, if you look in the manufacturing facilities, most of the raw materials comes from Malaysia, which is just across the country. So those are the things which you need to look into, and do not be like a bit narrow-minded. You need to literally jot down the chart and see what kind of puzzles go in before it reaches to the consumer, as well as when it reaches to the market, to the shelf, and then plan out. So that's how you need to think when you go for especially for the startups. I've noticed that, and not just with R&D, but also with I think with even sourcing of funding as well. I've noticed that when they pitch the story, this is very important. If they're able to give a building of the entire roadmap of how their thought process is, it also supports the investor that they've looked into that insight. So that's something which I think every student can start inculcating that thought process in a very young stage. Because one thing what I had I had a drawback when I was started my R&D is that we used to think just R&D, right? And we used to be as a food technologist, and we never used to think about the QC or the production or the when it reaches to the market or the shelf life of what happens or when it reaches to the consumers. But all these needs to be thought as well. You can wear multiple hats. What I will say from experience. Yeah. Thanks, Prasanna.
Thank you, Shruti. So that's where the importance of cross-functional collaboration happens in an industry. So we never work in silos in an industry, right? Like a quality can never work without production support and vice versa, and the new product development team. So they'll always be like, because the quality is something which they have to focus right from the beginning, which they cannot worry about like after the project is developed. So that is where like cross-functional skills, that's why like I mentioned during the introduction about the interdisciplinary nature. So that's very, very important. We should never think that, okay, this is my job, so I'll just focus on that. So I think the students should start developing these skill sets in the beginning itself. So that would be very helpful for them when they start their job in the industry. Thank you, Shruti.
I'm sorry, Padma. I'll just add one more thing about the cultivated meat space. So cultivated meat space is actually the first time where biotech and food tech came in. I'm not sure whether Siddharth agrees to it. It's one of the challenges which I faced was to work with stem cell scientists, bioprocess engineers, and food technologists. Why is because stem cell scientists and bioprocess engineers thinks of, they want the cells to survive. Food technologists thinks at a perspective, I want the consumers to survive, or I want the consumer to be cool with the product, right? So when I started in 2019, that gap was there. I think now the gap is filled, but that kind of perspective was interesting to see a challenge like you need to come to a neutral place where the cells need to survive as well as there should be shelf stable taste, nutrient perspective and everything. So as a wholesome product. So that was an interesting thing as well to point out. Yeah.
Thank you, Shruti. My next question is for Siddharth. Siddharth, there is a common misconception that scientific graduates need to find only lab-based roles in smart protein. But there are various ways for a scientist to be involved in such an emerging, happening field without having to limit themselves to a laboratory setting. What are some jobs you would suggest that require scientific knowledge and expertise but do not involve lab work? And what non-technical skills do you think is most important for these roles?
Yeah, so I think there are different ways to be associated or work in the smart protein field. Yes, as scientists, like our go-to jobs could be like research and development. And usually the way with R&D jobs is that you start off typically with lab-based roles, and then you progress into commercialization or higher designation roles, be it like manager, senior, whatever, director, etc. But I think there are other ways also to be involved in smart protein, which are non-lab based. Few roles that come into my mind, which I've seen my peers doing, are in project management. So they use their technical background. There are also different certifications. I think the Project Management Institute provides the project management certification, which a lot of people I know have been doing recently. So they have like this project management aspect too, and they manage projects, right? So like Shruti was mentioning, smart protein field, cell cultivated, plant-based fermentation. This is a very interdisciplinary, cross-functional field. So we have people from different backgrounds, from chemical engineering, biotechnology, cellular agriculture, food science, culinary science, to then marketing. And a project management or program management function is very essential to keep everyone sort of aligned to the broader goal, to the timelines. And I think someone with a technical background and a project management experience or background could really blend in both to ensure that all the projects and products and platforms succeed. Then I would say another role that I've seen a lot of my peers like doing are scientific co-founders. So a lot of startups in the space, they have a founder, with a business background and a founder with a scientific background. So I think that's another avenue, like not a lab-based role, but then having a vision for where you want the product to be, and then sort of building the company around that. And in terms of skill sets that are needed, I would say one is communication. I think irrespective of the role, having good communication, is very important. It aligns the teams. It sets clarity in people on what needs to be done. So that's one skill, I would say. And second is critical thinking and problem solving. I think be it scientists, be it not scientists, I think Smart Protein is trying to disrupt, already established industries or work with them rather to create a new category of products. And I think that there are a lot of problems. Shruti was again mentioning that every day is a challenge in, sort of Smart Protein field. And we need to think critically about problems and we need to solve them in a timely fashion. So these are the skills that, everyone can develop to succeed in their respective domains.
Thank you, Siddharth. It really reflects your experience in the field. And I have a follow-up question for Apoorva here. Apoorva, in your experience, how does the R&D process in the Smart Protein sector differ from more conventional fields, and what unique challenges and opportunities does this sector present?
Yeah, so again, a great question. So when we compare the smart protein sector with the traditional meat or dairy, there is a lot of difference in the development and once the product is produced. Firstly, it would be with the smart protein sector is more focused on developing novel ingredients, say like plant-based proteins, fermentation products, or cultured proteins, which we don't see much of in the traditional companies. And then the second one would be like technological innovations that's happening in this space. There is a lot of new platforms and technologies that are being innovated, whether it's cell culture or it's extrusion. So that's another difference. And then thirdly, I would say in terms of nutrition, there is more optimization that's going on in the plant-based food side when compared to the traditional dairy or meat. There is more focus on improving the overall nutrition profile of the products, whether to either mimic that of the animal or just to fortify, basically by increasing the amount of essential amino acids, vitamins, or minerals in general, basically having a product which has a higher nutritional value compared to its traditional counterpart. And as a foundation for all of this, there is a very much stronger emphasis on sustainability and environmental impact that goes into consideration when we are developing this process or ingredients for the smart protein sector. So we're always looking at ways in which we can reduce the carbon footprint when it comes to ingredients, processes, or products. So those are some of the differences that I can think of. In terms of challenges, I would say I think we can all agree that there is always challenges related to the regulatory approvals when it comes to like new technologies or ingredients, especially if it involves genetic engineering. There is always some regulatory challenges that we see, and then always consumer education and awareness. Trying to educate consumers about this sector and making them understand why it's important and how these products can be better for them when compared to the traditional products. And then the third challenge is definitely cost, whether it's related to ingredients or the processing fee for these production facilities. There's costs which makes it maybe less accessible for consumers to buy products when in comparison to the traditional products. And some opportunities that I see for that the smart protein sector has in comparison to traditional meat or dairy is that we always come up with a lot more innovative solutions to problems, because I feel that R&D in this sector is much more fast-paced compared to that with the traditional companies. And there's also like better utilization of resources that we have. And we're always looking at for a more sustainable way to problem solve. So yeah, those are some of the things that I can think of.
Thank you, Apoorva. You very nicely encapsulated all the key challenges and opportunities in the sector. And I would just like to add one more thing, like the uniqueness of smart protein sector is like the other, compared to the other conventional fields. So either those will be like very specific to very specific concepts, or it will have very broad concepts. But smart protein is a blend of both, right? Like because we are trying to mimic animal-derived counterparts. So we can plant proteins are very different from animal-derived proteins. So we have that challenge, and also like to absorb the learnings from the other side, to develop products with good sensory and taste parity. So it is a blend of both generic things and specific things in the smart protein sector. So thank you, Apoorva, for your answer. And so we have almost reached the end of the session. So I have one last question for all of you, for all the speakers. We'll go one by one. So we have our smart protein project student groups tirelessly working to put smart protein on a pedestal among Indian student communities. What are your suggestions for the smart protein student groups to effectively promote wider student community participation and awareness in the smart protein field? Shruti, I would like to start with you.
Definitely. I think with the students, I think students still do not know what are the job opportunities available for in the smart protein space. GFI is doing an amazing job, especially I think food technology background people think that they can land only in food technology roles. No, you actually have different roles like sensory specialist, fermentation scientist, and there's so many other roles you can explore. To attract more students or to have more students come on board, probably having such insightful sessions about how whatever we learn in this 4 years or 3 years of food technology, how it's applicable to the smart protein space, kind of that'll be more interesting. And at the same time, networking sessions. I'm a fan of networking sessions as well as going to events, meeting people and learning from experience of people. If that can be involved, having those coffee meets or like bringing in someone and having those engaging conversation within the student community so that more insights has been known about what's happening in the space will be great for the student organizations to be more involved in the smart protein. Because I think when I was talking to another university, they didn't know that there are so many opportunities in the smart protein. As you mentioned, Padma, like next year, there's so many job openings there. But the gap which students have is that, am I capable or am I eligible to apply for it? And the answer is yes. The basics of what we learn in food technology is what we can apply it. So I think that should definitely help the student groups to, be more active and attract more students to join into the student groups. And another thing is that I would tell every student to follow this page called KET. It's Tech. I'm not sure how many of you know. It's an amazing website where they've literally jotted in the entire structure of companies in plant-based meat space, plant-based milk, eggs, cultivated meat space, and fermentation space. It's like they've literally jotted out every company in the world, mapped it around in a PDF. Please go look into that website. It's called Tech, and you can literally go and check in what are the opportunities available in those companies so that you can get to know where you can fit in as well. Yeah, that's from my end.
Shruti, very useful information. Siddharth, can we hear from you?
Yeah, so I agree with Shruti completely. I think having more networking events, more of these webinars, so that students know as they are graduating what are the different opportunities. I think other things which I think GFI India is already doing is maybe having like every year there is like a GFI funneled like an internship program with companies. So so students, and then they have to I think the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge is something similar where the top teams they have formed their startups in the space. They get connected with advisors. So I think that has been huge. But having more of these programs, which I know GFI is already having, and I personally feel that even compared to like 4 or 5 years earlier, right now, because of these smart protein projects in India and around the globe, like students know so much about smart protein already. And I see I even was there at the Good Food Conference, like a couple of months ago, and I saw a lot of student community over there, who knew about smart protein, were pursuing research in smart protein, were part of smart protein companies. So I think just continuing what GFI is doing to promote these things. Yeah, so I think, and like Shruti said, more networking events and more of these webinars. I think that would be good.
Thank you, Siddharth. Apoorva, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, so I totally agree with Siddharth and Shruti on the networking aspect. I completely believe in the power of networking. So maybe Smart Protein Project student groups can host networking sessions like meet and greets so that students have an opportunity to interact and meet people who are working on something really interesting, and then that can spark that curiosity, and that's how they can get introduced into the sector. The other thing is, like both of them mentioned, webinars and master classes like these, and having people talk about their experience can also inspire students. Other than that, one more thing would be like having hackathons, which could like foster collaboration, innovation, and problem solving in a fun way. It could be just like a 2 or 3 day challenge where where students are tagging along with maybe mentors from different startups or companies, and then having like a hackathon challenge and solving on a specific problem. So those are some of the ways in which we can increase the participation of students. In terms of awareness, I feel if there is an opportunity at university or college level to include some of these things as part of curriculum, as to whatever they're studying, if it's biotech or food tech, if there are like, if smart proteins can be part of the curriculum, then that is one way in which they can get introduced into this whole space. I don't know if that's already happened in India, or if it's something that people are thinking about. At least when I studied 10 years back, I did not hear about smart proteins or alternative proteins, but hopefully that can change. But yeah.
Thank you, Apoorva. So we have all reached the end of this session. So I'll take this opportunity to thank all our speakers for joining, for accepting our invitation and sharing their journey and learning experiences with us. So I see questions in the chat box. So let us take that one by one. So the first question is for Apoorva. So an attendee has asked, I am a biotech student and I would like to know how or what I should start working on now if I want to get into the food tech field.
Okay, so that's a great question. I'm very happy to know that you're interested and you want to pursue your career in the food tech field. So like on the academic side, I would say try and take as many courses if there is an option to take on the food tech or food science side. Apart from that, if you're trying to do like a research thesis or like some type of a scientific work, try to choose subjects that are somewhat close to the food tech space, because that can give you like a really good background for you to get started on your higher studies. So apart from that, yeah, trying to connect with people who are in the industry, talking to them, and being up to date with what's going in the industry. In the beginning, it might seem like Greek and Latin. You might not understand everything when you try to read about food tech or what's going on, but trying to acquaint yourself with what's new in the field and what new innovations or technologies are being innovated can also keep you like very up to date and can help you progress.
Thank you, Apoorva. So the next question is from Shreyans. So Shreyan's question is compliance and quality assurance function from pharma manufacturing industry experience translatable to alt protein companies? So Shruti, if you can please answer this.
Yeah, I think it is relevant, but definitely, as I mentioned, you will need to know about the food tech quality assurance compliance as well. With regards to cultivated meat space, as I mentioned, in the first part of the production of the isolation run, right, till media formulation or the scale-up runs, pharmaceutical grades can be applicable. But again, we are trying to develop a food product. So from day one, you think as a food product. So probably it might be a base, but definitely you'll have to know more specific about the food quality assurance or the FSSAI. You'll have to learn that as well. But you could just take a course on it, and further to it, there is a possibility of job shifting into the food space as well on that.
Thank you, Shruti. So next question is from Shweta. I think probably Siddharth can answer this. Is it possible to get smart protein career internship in US despite being a food tech graduate in India?
I think it's possible. I think what I've realized is that a lot of smart protein companies, they are seeking talent across the globe. So if you have the relevant sort of experience or what you can basically bring to that internship, uh, I think it's possible. So I would say that if you see an internship opportunity, put your best foot forward. Like, understand what the goals of that internship are. What is the hiring manager looking for you to deliver at the end of those 3 months, and highlight your relevant experience. Like, I have done so and so, this is what I can give in the 3 months that I'm interning. So put your best foot forward. I think networking is also big. So, you could reach out to the companies, in addition to just applying on the portal, reach out to people, try to ask, hey, how's your work experience been? So I think all these things help. But I would say it's definitely possible, because we see, like, a lot of people in our field like moving across countries for internships, for full-time roles.
Thank you, Siddharth. So I find an interesting question here from Anupam. So he has asked, if I find a job in a small versus established startup, which one to choose, assuming both profiles are very interesting. So so if all of you can share your thoughts on this question. Should I repeat the question? Yeah. Yeah, Apoorva, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so that's like a really interesting question. It depends on what the company is and what your interest is, Anupam. Um, if they both are working on similar platforms or products, and if you want to choose between the both, I would say it's for you to see where you have the highest opportunity for growth if you're in your early stage. So trying to see what team you're working with and where you would get that mentorship to grow. In a very small startup, you would be given more opportunities and you will have more roles to play, and that can expose you to different challenges, and then it will help you improve the skill set. Maybe in an established startup, you already have a team or like R&D team, and you have a manager who has a lot of experience and you can learn through their experience. So it's ultimately what you would want from both of these. I think you can make the best decision as to which would be the best suit for you in terms of your growth and where you want to see yourself in the future.
I think I completely agree with what Apoorva said. I think, be it early stage or more established startup, it comes with its own set of challenges and own sets of like sort of positives what you can gain out of it. Another thing I would also say is if you have those two offers out there, taste the product, talk to the team, see which product and which team you believe in the most, be it early stage or be it further along, and then join accordingly.
For me, I second with Siddharth what he said. Taste the product, meet the team, or get to see whether that particular thing resonates, a particular product resonates with you, not just the team, but also the environment. That's very, very important, because no matter how amazing the space is, if it doesn't fit for you, then definitely it will affect your growth. So another thing is, please do look into the job scope, and if it's not very deep well in detail, go back to your HR and check on the job scope and see which one resonates with you, with both the options provided to you. May it be a small startup or a well-established startup, because as Apoorva said, both has its own positives and the negatives, but it again depends on the job scope. For example, even in a well-established startup, if you are into the division which is very new, for example, in Impossible for this, opening up a new product arm, and you are into that team, so definitely things will be starting from scratch, and the job roles which you are involved into it might be more exploratory and more exciting, as every day you'll have a challenge. So do look into the job scope in detail. Talk with the team, get to understand the environment, and please do taste the product. If you feel that, yes, this is the product and I can sell this product into the market, or I can vouch for this product, I think you will be the spokesperson for the company. Yeah.
Thank you, Shruti. So the next question is from Hari Sundar. Hari Sundar's question is, can international graduates work at US startups after an MS, and will a food tech MS be too specific during job search there?
Yeah, I think yes. I mean, I think both Apoorva, like Shruti, me, we have all have done masters in food science, food tech, and we have worked at companies in the space. It's not specific. I think in fact it's a very good background. Good food chemistry, engineering, microbiology background to then dive into smart protein projects and smart protein companies.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think we can take one last question, which is a general question. How can a fresher like me start a career in the field of food tech? So the attendee is expecting for some guidance, tips on this. It's a very broad question. So whoever wants to take this question.
I can start, and Apoorva and Siddharth can join in as well. I would say please be active in LinkedIn. Please follow the key pages. For example, like GFI, there are KET, Kind Earth Tech, there are New Harvest. There are quite a large number of organizations working or striving hard to bring about this plant-based or cultivated meat and other all proteins into the market, or striving to bring it into the food pipeline. So please do follow those pages. So every day you will have some new exciting news. For example, I think today Umami Bioworks has collaborated to establish a manufacturing plant. So every single day you will have new updates. So use LinkedIn as your Instagram page. That would be my first recommendation, because I think from my experience, LinkedIn gave me more knowledge rather than me going and reading exclusively about it. Another thing is, please do connect with as many as people as possible in LinkedIn in the smart protein field. I'm sure everyone, no matter whether they are the co-founder, CEO, or an head of the R&D, they will respond to your invite. And you can. And I one thing I've seen in this smart protein space is that collaboration and also helping the student community know about and learn more about the space. So there's more of kindness and empathy also involved in it. So I'm sure people will put their hand forward to say or guide you or mentor you. There will be people there to help you out as well. So please do follow these two things to know. Do not, for example, I got to know what I love at the age of 26. Like, I was sure when I finished my master's, and then when I worked couple of years in research, I realized that I don't want to be in research. I want to be more into a managerial or more like in a administrative plus technical role. So it took time for me. So do not say that at 21, whatever job you join and is going to be like next 15 years. It will change. You will evolve. So please do take up that challenge and please be resilient on that. Yeah, that will be my take.
I can second Shruti on the LinkedIn part. Definitely, LinkedIn has been like a very powerful tool. I have found all my jobs and internships through LinkedIn. So try to take maximum advantage of that platform. Apart from that, I would say one more thing is to try to find opportunities where you can get hands-on experience, be it an internship, or even if it is going to be like like few months of working in a company, even if it's like an unpaid role, like just to volunteer and to just get your foot into the industry and experience how this whole this whole world of food processing or food tech works. So yeah, I think having that experience can set you up like for some really good success in future, giving you like the background and some basic skills that you would need to start your career in the food tech sector.
Yeah, I totally agree with Apoorva and Shruti. I think few other things I would say is keep trying. It's, say if you have one company in mind, I want to work with this company, that doesn't work out at this point in your career. There are other, as Apoorva said, gain hands-on experience, maybe 2-3 years down the line, can reapply to the company and sort of be at your dream company at that point. So I would say keep trying. Also, as Shruti mentioned, that you need not have it all figured out at the age of 21, 22 when you're graduating. Maybe you feel that, okay, I think I'm a researcher, and then you start doing research, but then you realize, no, I have more of a business development mindset. or a founder mindset. Like, there are appropriate courses, appropriate career trajectories that you can take to be where you want to be. So I think be flexible in the first, I think you have to always be flexible, like throughout your career, but in these stages, definitely so.
Thank you, Siddharth. I completely agree with all three of you. So I would just add one thing, like being a fresher, as Siddharth mentioned, you have to be very flexible. Don't be very rigid with your expectations. And it is always good to have industry experience, because that is where you get to see like what happens in real time and connecting with the consumers, because ultimately they are the boss. So I would always suggest it's good to have industry experience and then explore your interests. Like I switched from, when I'm just opposite of Shruti, I joined industry and then I switched to research. So like, even so I would say, like, even to decide that, you have to have that experience in that particular field. So be very open and observe what is happening in your field. Be always like have open eyes and ears and observe what is happening in the field. And I'm sure, like as Shruti mentioned, so LinkedIn is a great platform. So don't think that I'm too early to have a profile on LinkedIn. So if you are a student, look, and like towards the end of your completing your course and you're looking for job opportunities, like I would say, like spend some time to have a good LinkedIn profile, and that's where like you can see the professional world, coming up with a lot of information. So with this, I would like to thank all our three speakers, Siddharth, Shruti, and Apoorva, for your valuable time. And it was lovely hearing your experience and journey, like what are the opportunities and challenges that you have, faced in the smart protein sector. So I thank all of you for joining us today, accepting our invite and joining us today. So I also thank all the participants for their active participation, and I can still see some more questions. We will try and answer that for you. We also thank all our participants, and I thank my colleagues Purvasha and Amruta for the great coordination, which is very important for the success of this webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.